Hello, everybody. I am Jared Ross, the GeneaVlogger. Welcome to another live stream. We're having a little technical difficulties with some stuff, so hopefully everything's sounding good, looking good right now. But up to the last second, I was having to check stuff out. So welcome, everybody. Today is going to be an interesting stream. For anyone who keeps track of my streams, I usually do one stream on this channel 1 week, and then the next week I'll do one on the reaction channel. Well, last week I did one on this channel, and this week I'm doing another one on this channel, and it's just because I thought this was going to be such an interesting stream. I figured I might as well do this one. We'll do a ask questions stream next week, and plus with the family tree building for you that I've been doing in the past few weeks, it's kind of all been a lot of the same. So we're going to jump into it in a second. I'm going to talk about what we're going to look into. So we're going to be building Shane Gillis's family tree. For those of you who are on YouTube, I put up a poll of, do you know who Shane Gillis is? Because I wasn't sure if he's someone that my audience would necessarily know. Although I am hoping that this may draw in some people who are Shane Gillis's fans, and maybe even Shane Gillis himself. Though I kind of doubt that would happen, but who knows? So I see that most of you have no clue who he is. So he's a comedian in the U.S., a little bit of a controversial comedian, not as controversial as a lot of comedians these days, but he's most well known for being hired by SNL and then being fired before he even started. But he has gotten really big recently for doing a Donald Trump impression on Kill Tony. So he does a Donald Trump impression, and then Adam, what is his name? There's another comedian. I can't remember his name. It's Adam something. Adam Ray. He does a Joe Biden impression, and they do it together. It's pretty funny. So anyway, he did talk about in a podcast his family history. Apparently he has an uncle who's a genealogist, which I actually was thinking too, that'd be pretty funny if his uncle ended up coming in here as well. But in a podcast he did a year or two ago, or maybe even longer, at least the clip is from a year or two ago. So I assume maybe the podcast is from then. He talked about this ancestor. And so we're going to watch that video in a second. It's not a very long video. It's literally a minute and a half. But before that, I'm going to do a quick run through all the hellos, because as usual, I see a lot of my people in here. So I'm going to do it kind of like last time, where I'm not going to kind of stop and read too many of them, but I am going to click through all of them. And of course, we've got people on Twitch as well. So if you're on YouTube and you have a Twitch account, definitely go follow me there as well. And then if you're on Twitch and you have a YouTube and you're not following me on YouTube, definitely do that, because that's where the majority of my stuff is coming from. So yeah, we got a ton of stuff. Yeah, his show Tires, I have not watched yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And interestingly enough, I recognize a lot of people from it who are in this show called Delco. That was like, they only made like 1 or 2 episodes, but I thought they were hilarious because I have a lot of family from Pennsylvania. My dad grew up in, Germantown and all of that. But then also I went to school in Pittsburgh, which, I went to University of Pittsburgh, and there were a ton of people from, Pennsylvania all over, including the area that his family's from. So actually one of my roommates was from the town, what was it? Is it Pottsville or Pottstown? I can never remember. It's wherever Yingling was founded, Pottsville. Yeah, so one of my roommates my senior year in college, one of my fraternity brothers. But yeah, I definitely need to check that show out. But I find him pretty funny. I think he's got good stuff. But to each their own. But either way, we're not going to focus on the comedy. We're going to focus on the ancestry because it's quite interesting, honestly. So let's see, we're going to do it so we can share the audio. Okay, cool. So you make sure it's not going to play back. If there are any audio issues, please definitely let me know. But if not, yeah, we'll go. So, wow. 81% of you do not know who Shane Gillis is. So yeah, very interesting. So hopefully this does draw some Shane Gillis fans in here. So all right, let's watch this.
Uncle's into genealogy. He got obsessed with it.
Every family has one. Every family has one. Alex Haley.
I've been bamboozled. My family's not from fucking Ireland. Like, I thought my grandma was from Ireland. We've been here forever, dude.
Really?
A lot of us have.
Really?
And
in Chester?
One of them came down to Chester. We were all coal miners in Ireland, and then came over to Carbondale, Pennsylvania, and we're coal miners in the coal region. And then my one uncle, they only found my great grandfather. They found one news article about him, and he was beat to death by a gypsy in Chester County.
Oh, Chester County.
A gypsy tricked him.
Really?
He told him he was a horse doctor, and he beat him to death.
What the fuck, dude?
That was my great grandfather.
Will you avenge?
Last name Dillon.
Will you avenge?
I knew I hated gypsies.
Yeah.
He got tricked by a horse doctor.
What? Chester County is not like the bad Chester.
Not,
it's not shitty.
I should say I'm not condoning anything he's necessarily saying. I know in my Discord, we've had this conversation about using the term gypsy, and that it is derogatory to many, and it's something, at least in our Discord, we ask people not to use that term. But just it's an interesting history, and I know that Charlie has some connections to the Irish. I think was that it post something and I'll let you know. But yeah, just an interesting thing to say. But all right, let's continue. I should also know this is from he has a podcast with another comedian. Is it Shane Metzger is his name? I think that's it. I might be wrong.
Yeah, it's not city. That's where like they have like horses and shit like that.
That's before he got tricked.
He literally got like tricked in the woods.
Yeah,
but this was Chester County, and what year was
that's
this?
The woods, like 1870.
Yeah, this was the woods, bro.
So
he was just out there. He literally got ran up.
He got killed in a gypsy camp in the woods
by the Peaky Blinders.
The Peaky Blinders beat him to death out in the woods, dude. My fucking poor great grandfather.
What the fuck, dude? What the hell?
I was furious.
He was on official horse business.
I was reading it like, wait, why does my whole family like talk about like we're from Ireland? We've been here since like.
First of all, every Irish person does that.
It's so annoying, dude.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Broke my heart. I've told stories. I've been like, yeah, my grandma spoke with an Irish accent. It's like, no, she didn't. I've been lying this whole time.
All right, so that's the video. I guess the end of it didn't really give that much in a sense, but. From that video, I was inspired, like, okay, I want to look this up. I want to see what is the deal with this. So we're going to stop sharing because I need to reshare in a different way. So what I did was I went to newspapers.com. And here we go. I knew it was Chester County, Pennsylvania, so I specifically chose Chester County, Pennsylvania. Make that bigger for everybody. Try to make that as legible as possible to read. Okay. Has that made it worse? All right. So I just did gypsy, horse, doctor, because that would have been the term they used. Obviously Shane used that, which to me told me that, okay, it's probably from that. Now with the date, I chose 1871 to 1945 because before I chose the date, it was already the earliest one was 1871. So all I did was I, figured, okay, well, early 1900s, who knows what time he's talking about. So, let's bring it closer. And then that was really it. But literally the first one right there, reading into it, by which Edward Dillon, that was the thing that told me, because in the clip he says, family name Dillon, but in the clip they spelled Dillon Dylan, but I also figured could be anything else. I did a search for Dillon in Chester County in a few spellings, but just was too much to turn up. So when I, did this, first thing that came up, obviously. Yeah, let's see. In my more or less close family, I have at least one very lousy genealogist, judging from the mess he created on my heritage. Yeah, that's an unfortunate thing with some family members that get into genealogy is they don't understand the proper genealogy process or the genealogical proof standard and of reviewing records. And especially the worst are the hint acceptors that just go on and accept every single hint they find. It can be very difficult. And that's definitely a reason why a lot of people are very possessive over their trees and won't use collaborative trees like Genie or WikiTree or Family Search. But in my opinion, I think it's worthwhile to do both. Have your own tree that you control somewhere, whether it's offline, on Ancestry, on MyHeritage, or something like that. And then also participate in at least one of the collaborative family trees. Just curious, when will part 2 release for Max Muller's Ancestry? Well, technically, the episode that just came out was part 2. But technically, I know part 2 of them reacting. I don't know exactly when that's going to come out because there's not a lot that I have to research on it. We're still waiting on some FOIA requests for stuff. We actually just got one of those in, which was awesome. Didn't give us the answers we wanted necessarily, but FOIA request, by the way, is Freedom of Information Act request. So we have to do that for the government to get certain records. And for this, we were looking at World War II service-related records. So I don't know. Honestly, I was aiming to possibly get it out before the end of the year, but I'm not sure if that'll happen because I also have other videos that I'm going to be doing in that time. And I'm planning to not necessarily do all of the episodes on Max's family, like one after the other for my YouTuber family tree series. So in between, I'll have other YouTuber episodes. So like actually the next episode I have lined up for YouTuber family trees is going to likely be on Joseph Hall Patton, the cynical historian, son of Mark Hall Patton, the famous Beard of Knowledge from Pawn Stars. So, all right, back to this. So this was the article I found. Based on everything in it, it was like, okay, this has to be it. Then when I went and searched, I was able to actually find what I think was some of the stuff that his uncle must have put up online. And that seemed to be the right family tree. So what I did was I started a family tree, and we're going to focus on Edward Dillon. I know the name of the live stream is Building Shane Gillis's Family Tree, and while we technically are, I'm not going to be building from Shane Gillis himself. Just because the way things were, it seemed like he's trying to keep certain stuff private with their family. So I figured let's just focus on the thing we're interested in, the history, at least the thing I'm interested in. So I know that's one of the things a lot of people that aren't into genealogy will get creeped out of when someone starts looking at their tree, is that the assumption they make is looking at my immediate family. And especially for people that have kids, you know, they're worried about their kids. And so they'll dive into that, when a lot of the times, really what I feel like a lot of genealogists are really into are, you know, what's the history they're coming from, or are they related to me in some way or connected to me in some way? So I went in and added just some basic stuff for Edward. There was a picture available. Very, very interesting. I'm not sure if I really see a similarity to Shane Gillis. But based on everything I saw, this guy is Shane Gillis's second great grandfather. In the video, Shane talks about that it's, you know, from the 1870s. And not quite. He was born in 1860, so maybe that's what he meant. But the story actually is 1902. So once I found the name, all I did then was just, you know, Edward Dillon. And then, you know, I had all sorts of stuff coming up. And the trick with newspapers, especially, is if you can see something in the headline that works well, that usually that kind of gives you an indication that it's the right thing you're looking at. So this was the most interesting article on it that I found. And this is what I used for the thumbnail. So let's make this large so everybody can read it. New murder case for our county. Edward Dillon dies after fight with Doc Gardner. Battle occurred at Gypsy Camp in New Garden last Thursday, and victim lived until yesterday, assailant a fugitive. So he didn't die until after a couple of days, at least. This morning, coroner C.J. Troutman went to New Garden to attend an inquest over the body of Edward Dillon, who died there yesterday. Dillon is supposed to have been killed by Doc Gardner, an alleged horse doctor. Deputy Coroner Louis A. Lipp is investigating the case. Very interesting thing in this article. Everything that I found on Edward Dillon had his death date as either April 2nd, March 31st, or there were a few that had a different April date. I can't remember what it was. But there were a bunch of these like Webchester County Index records that I saw that I want to say it was April 7th. But according to this article, which came out April 2nd, who died there yesterday, would meaning that he died April 1st. But if we're looking at actual death records and things like that, then, you know, that's probably what we should really base it on, not what a newspaper says. But at the same time, I don't know if that's him. Yeah, okay, this is him. This is him. But at the same time, you know, we have this stone of his that has that date. So, you know, this is all the fun stuff about when you're getting into the genealogical proof standard of every little contradiction that you find, needing to figure out, okay, well, what's the most likely thing that's correct? What's going on that's causing the differences? And, you know, could it be a whole different person or something like that? So there's a lot of articles about this. And I guess actually, let's just get back to reading this one. All right. Dillon was a horse trader, about 40 years old, and well known in the neighborhood of Avondale and Tufkenham. I don't know. Tufkenham? I don't know. Last Thursday, he visited the gypsy camp kept by Gardner and another man, and they're engaged in a horse trade in which he was worsted. Attempting to take it out on the other man, Dillon, it is alleged, became engaged in a fight, but which man struck the first blow is not yet known. Dillon had gone to the camp in company with two men from Landenberg who were on their way to see Gardner for medicine for a horse. Dillon had just come from Philadelphia, and the Landenberg men, it is said, took him to ride with them. One or both stood near at the time of the fight. After the scrimmage was over and Dillon was left on the ground more dead than alive, his friends conveyed him home while Gardner and his companion packed up their tent and departed. It is said that Gardner was seen in Coatesville on the following day. He is a large, heavy man with flushed face and sandy mustache. For about 2 months, he had been conducting the gypsy camp in the woods not far from Tufkenham. He's about 55 years old. Dillon leaves a wife and 7 children. His habits are said to have been somewhat irregular, and his family is left in a destitute condition. So, very, very interesting story. And basically, I thought after that, let's build this tree and see what's going on, because Shane also said a few things that I found very interesting in the clip. I'm not going to go back and pull it up, but one of the things he said was that, you know, the only thing we found on this ancestor was this one article. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, just one article. Obviously, that is not the case. Even more, to me, that indicated that the parents weren't known. That is definitely not the case, even according to what his uncle has put online, assuming that what I found was his uncle. They know about the ancestors. So I think it's just a matter of that, you know, he's probably gotten disparate information from his uncle, and, you know, just like a lot of genealogists, it's, you know, hard to convey everything you're finding to your family. And, you know, sometimes you'll tell them about this or that. And, you know, I know a lot of times I'll talk to my family about stuff that, you know, I told them years ago, and they, you know, ask, oh, so it was this and this and this, and it'll be not quite what I actually said. They're like, oh, no, you got it wrong. You're kind of right, but you got it wrong. So I'm kind of guessing that could be the case here. But it was very interesting to see that there's a photo of him. He lived until 1902. So, you know, there's a whole lot on him. And just looking him up, you know, we know that he was born in 1860. So if we sort by oldest, we're in Chester County, PA, which is where he was. So I'm not quite sure if it was necessarily him or another Edward Dillon. That's something we'd need to research. But there was some interesting stuff like this little case that I found, selling liquor without a license. The defendant keeps a hotel at Tufkenham, which has been licensed for a year past. He was charged by James Pollock, a boy who had been raised in his family. With selling liquor to minors without a license. They stated that spirituous liquors were habitually sold in the back room of the hotel after license was removed by Eugene Whitelock, Forrest something and himself, Forrest Meelan, Jasper Unsank, David Lemon, blah, 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 all these people, and Edward Dillon testified. So that I thought was pretty interesting. And then just, there was just Edward Dillon coming up here and there. And, we'd have to do more work to confirm that this was the same Edward Dillon. But I think it most likely is, because based on what I found, his parents were the ones to have come from Ireland. So let's dive into some of the records here. And I guess actually the first one we'll look at is the one that I've already added, which is the 1900 census. And that's the reason why we already have some of the stuff in there. So with the 1900 census, we can see that Edward is listed as being from Pennsylvania, whereas his wife, which here it's like, it's very hard to read. I can definitely see why they say Hannah. If I remember correctly, her name is actually Joanna. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, maybe this is like a really weird J. And like, I don't know. But either way, we see that he's from Pennsylvania. His parents are from Ireland, and then she's from Ireland. So these are his Shane Gillis's second great grandparents. And that means that his great grandfather, or a great grandmother, I think it was actually, was technically a first generation American through her mom's side, but then was a second generation American through her father's side, because Edward's parents were the immigrants. Interestingly enough, with knowing when a lot of Irish came over, it seems like his family came over with that typical wave of that, early mid 1800s sort of thing. Getting calls right now. Let's see. Okay, I'm seeing a bunch of. Okay. Just checking chat. Wasn't quite sure what everyone was talking about. Okay, so let's get into some of the other records to kind of add stuff in. I'm not going to get too far into it, but this is actually the ancestor from what I saw. This is Shane Gillis's great grandmother, and this is her death record. So she died. Voicemail. So she dies 1928, born 1895. So she died really young, really, really young, only 33. And then not quite sure exactly what it says. Kind of, if anyone can read that or knows what it says. Yeah, just all I could do is kind of guess to a lot of different stuff. So yeah, but then parents Edward and Hannah. So, Hannah, Joanna. Because maybe that was what I wasn't. I didn't think about that part. All right, so we're gonna just get that added in. General septicemia. What is that? Oh, blood. Oh, sepsis. Oh, wow. Oh, gosh. So then, wow. So from March 11th to April 2nd, she was in the hospital for that. Oof, that's rough. All right, let's get back to looking into Edward. And what I'm kind of thinking is let's look into Edward going into the past and see what we can find in terms of like where his parents are coming from or something. So here we've got the 1870 census. We have Edward on the page by himself, 8 years old, at home. And down here we have the family. We have Martin, a railroad laborer, which is really interesting to see that because I've been doing a lot of research into families where I've found connections to the railroads. So like with Max Miller's family recently, I found the connection to the Baltimore and Ohio. With research coming up on another YouTuber family tree episode, there was a connection to, what was it? The Northwest Chicago line or something like that. I forgot exactly. And so here we've got, Pennsylvania, another railroad, and Chester County. I guess that could also be Baltimore and Ohio Railroad too, but might be a different one. But either way, wife Margaret, other child Mary. And the parents are kind of old, 57, 53, which makes me wonder if they had a lot of older children that we aren't seeing. I'll just... Ooh. That cold. Not that I have a cold, just that it is getting, well, I guess it's not cold today, but me and my allergies. Get this added in. Okay. So let's take a look at the marriage. So Edward, Joanna Burns, age man, 29 years, age woman, 25 years. Residence of man, New Garden Township, Chester County, same as the woman. Occupation of man, cattle dealer. Edward J. Dillon. And that actually reminds me, if I remember correctly, I think I saw another clip of Shane Gillis talking about that there was like some connection between his family and there was like a famous death. What was it? And that person was like delivering stuff to his family's. Oh, I remember what it was. Okay, so the story was that his family owned like a cattle farm or whatever, and the driver that ran into Joe Biden's wife and or Joe Biden's family back in the 70s, I think it was, and killed Joe Biden's first wife and I believe his daughter. The guy that was driving that truck was driving like a truck of feed to like the Gillis farm or the Dillon farm or whatever, whatever it was, which that's super interesting. If that's what it is, if this is the side that he was talking about, but married 1890. Nothing too crazy. Okay, then nothing different on the other page. So we'll get that added in. Not going to give us a lot. It was a mushroom farm. Okay. Maybe that was the Gillis side. One of the interesting things that I saw from the family tree that I believe was what his uncle put up is that if it's correct, the Gillis line actually traces to Nova Scotia, having Scottish roots in Nova Scotia, which is really interesting because that's what Brian Nash of How We Got Here Genealogy, that's his specialty. Oh, geez, now my nose like itches like crazy after sneezing so much. Damn you, allergies. Damn you. Okay. So, tons and tons of articles about his death. Was murdered, hurt badly in a fight. I guess this would have been an article right before he died. As a result of a fight in a gypsy camp near New Garden, Edward Dillon, a well-known stock dealer of Tuffkenaman, is badly injured. Dillon and the leader of the band got into a dispute, and the gypsy went at him with a club, breaking Dillon's arm in 2 places and fracturing 4 ribs. Actually, speaking of which, I guess I didn't even think. Wonder if we can find Edward's actual death record. Because let's see, Pennsylvania deaths. I don't remember what Pennsylvania death records are. If I remember correctly, they can be pretty hit or miss. That's okay. 1906 to 1970. So, okay. I'm going to have to sign in. Okay, so okay, we have Thomas Dillon. Got a lot of Dillons dying in 1902, apparently. 272 of them. Okay, so it doesn't look like we've got. See how many Edwards died in 1902. May have to put it to Chester County or something. Nothing. Oh, no. Don't want that. Don't want that. No, thank you. Isn't this the wrong time of year for allergies? Depends on the allergies. Depends on the allergies. For me, every season's a new thing of allergies. When the cold comes, a big part of it has to do with like the dryness, and then the cold kind of restricts the whatever nostrils, and I also have a lot of dust and different allergies and stuff. Yeah, I'm just one of those kids grew up with asthma and allergies and all that fun stuff. And actually, when I was a baby, there was a point where I think I had to be in like an oxygen tent. I was pretty sick as a little baby. Sick kid. All right, so doesn't seem like Edward's listed in these records. Let's see, Historical Society of PA. From my choices. Okay. Edward. Dillon. 1902. You know, it's that. Yeah. Really? Oh, it's on Find My Past. Okay. Let's see what we got going on here. Vital records. Okay. Is there any explanation of this? I don't know if I've ever actually gone here. Table browsers collection. So we'll see what it says. Hopefully there's some sort of table of contents or something. Okay. Pennsylvania marriage license. What are we dealing with here? I don't think this need like an actual guide to these records. Not sure if they'll have it. Okay. So for death records, I mean, looking at a 1902 death, the only place I would think could have it is here, but obviously Dillon. Dillon. The records are for Chester County specifically. Maybe that's it. They just don't have Chester County. We got some stuff. Chester, Upland, Delco. Okay. All right. Well, not finding his death record. I was hoping to find it because then it would give us more information on like what he actually died from. Here's a colorized version of that photo. So, all right. So, Edward, we're going to look into Martin and his wife. So, let's see what we can find. Older. He's got him living with his mom. Just him and his mom. I guess his father died at this point. Guess so. All right, so let's see what we're getting for the parents in general. That's the same stone. Certainly makes it easy to know that you're looking at the right family. Okay. I don't think that actually mentions his family. I think it's just like it says something to show how the Irish were viewed. Interesting. Is this the right Martin? Last will and testament. Martin Dillon of New Garden Township, Chester County. I, Martin Dillon, considering the uncertainty of this mortal life and being of sound mind and memory to make for first funeral expenses, bequeath to my beloved wife Margaret Dillon, all my effects real person received here at the death of my wife, whatever may be left to be divided equally, share and share alike between my daughter Mary Ann Dillon and my son Edward Dillon. Lastly, I appoint my wife sole execution, not execution, executor. That was actually a joke I made when my parents were like, are you okay with us making you the executor? And I was like, I can be the executioner? Okay. Okay. Executor of the last will and testament, hereby revoking all formal will. So interesting. So I was saying before that I was thinking maybe based on his parents' age that, even though it was him and his sister living in the house in 1870, maybe there were more kids who were older who were out of the house by 1870. But based on the will, it's just the two kids, Mary Ann Dillon and Edward Dillon. And then going up here, we've got the registrars, I believe. So, solemn affirmation, it did say in here, Martin Dillon, the testator. Yeah, it doesn't really give us anything, but yeah, just a nice, quick, easy will. He obviously did not know how to write, so just his marker. I guess, one thing I do think sometimes with these is that how often was it that it wasn't even a matter of that they didn't actually know how to sign, or was it that it was assumed they didn't know how to sign, and so their name was written in and they just said, okay, make your mark right here, not sign right here. I don't know how true that is. That's actually something that's always been on my mind that I wanted to look into, if there's something that, actually looks into that sort of history. But that's just one of those things that, like, I imagine in the same sense that when we start doing DNA testing on artifacts like envelopes and stamps on envelopes that, great grandma sent this or whatever, and we want great grandma's DNA. Well, you may get it, and this DNA under the stamp is actually the mailman's because the mailman was the one that licked the stamp and put it on there for her or something. So, it's just that kind of thing in the sense, but not quite. But either way, very interesting. So this is Shane Gillis's third great grandfather's will. And very confident that it's him because all the names match up exactly. They're in the right place, which is not a large area. So, and then interestingly enough, why is it saying Passmore? What is it doing? This is one of the disappointing things about Ancestry sometimes. Yeah, see, here's what's going on. This will of this Passmore is right above it, which they're using the old school FS to indicate SS, or at least Passmore. Maybe that's actually it. It's probably not that it's actually the old FS thing. It's probably more that it's whoever. Oh wait, no, maybe it is. Look, here we got it with an actual SS, or somebody changed it. I don't know. Either way. But what's going on is the indexing here has been incorrect, and for whatever reason, they have assigned Martin Dillon to Judith Passmore and Ruth Passmore, which are obviously not not his family. It's this, Margaret Dillon, as we know, and then his daughter Mary Ann Dillon and his son Edward Dillon. So we know this is him. We're not going to add this stuff in, but this is one of the things that you always want to check, even when you know a record is right. Sometimes people check it and they go, oh, that's definitely my ancestor. And then they add everything in, not realizing, oh, whoever indexed that was an idiot and did it wrong. Or I guess I shouldn't say it was an idiot. That's being mean. I've done indexing before, and it's pretty easy sometimes to kind of accidentally screw stuff up, and you've done thousands of things, and it's easy to lose it. Yeah, I know what you mean, but I think we all, it's just using the layman's terms of things, just a lot easier. So, All right. We've got this article here. Martin and Edward Dillon. Huh. So interesting. I guess, is this just a different? Because this is New Garden, PA, December 15, 1917. Edward, son of Martin and Margaret, née Connor. Relatives. Huh. Now this throws a twist into everything. Whoops. Went too far. That's interesting. So we've got one mark. I mean, we know dies 1902, says it right there on the stone. They're buried in Delaware, interestingly enough. But then here in New Garden, PA, Edward, a son of a Martin and a Margaret. Oh, but he's aged 18 months. Okay, so obviously not the same. I was like, for some reason I thought it said aged 18, and I didn't read the months part. Which even age 18, I should have given away, not the same age. All right. Let's see, how long have we gone? Okay. So for anyone hopping into the stream now or recently, right now we're looking into Shane Gillis's second great grandfather and his parents. So second great grandfather Edward Dillon, who was murdered, and his parents Martin Dillon and Margaret Peggy Welsh. So yeah, we're not gonna look at the other trees people have built. So, oh, fun. I always like land ownership maps. So land ownership maps can sometimes be difficult to figure out, but you can see who owns what and where. So it seemed like most of it was Tufgenamen. So we just need to look for Dillon. To get an idea. There we go, Martin Dillon right here. So we're right there. So Tufgenamen's over here. So he's right there. So Tufgenamen. Okay, yeah. So he's right here. So now, gosh, I hope I'm not pronouncing this Tufgenamen wrong. Yeah, I'm pronouncing it like Pokemon. Tufgenamen. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm thinking stuff like in New Jersey, there's Cinnaminson, and yeah. But, in Pennsylvania, you have stuff like, Conshohocken, the Schuylkill River. Okay, so going to Google Earth. So looking at this versus this, we're definitely looking, it is looking north, right? Yeah, it is. Okay. So here we've got the Philadelphia and Baltimore Central Railroad. So that was probably where the family was working, which makes sense. They're literally right along the railroad. So we've got that sort of weird little thing going on. So, I mean, it seems like It's like right here-ish it's supposed to be. Can we see, is the railroad still around? Yeah, there's the railroad. So this is somewhere in this square. Railroad. It's the bottom of it. So, yeah, the land that his family would have owned, it would have been somewhere around here. Yeah, I guess it would have been like here-ish. So this would have been about where the Dillon family lived. Church. Actually, you know what? Let's look at the record. What does the census say for where they lived? So that was 1873. So let's just look at the 1871, which we've already accepted. Dwelling 308. Doesn't look like it gives us oh yeah, I guess 1870 didn't give street numbers. So all right, 308. Let's see if they're still living in the same spot. 1880. 1880. Oh, but I think he died. Yeah, he's dead by 1880. So we'll see where Margaret Peggy's living. 1880. It's still 308. Not 308, but does it tell us what street at least? Like it. Either way, kind of interesting that, you know, this is where his family, the Dillons, would have been living right here. And I don't know exactly where he grew up, but oh, there we go. Reset to the width. So, okay, so 1870, his family owns that stuff out there. 1880, we got this. All right, so what I think what I kind of really want to figure out is see if I'm trying to think if there's anything we could get here that might give us a better idea of where they came from. Civil War draft. So Martin Dillon, New Garden, laborer from Ireland, claims to be over 45 years. Got U.S. tax discounts. Okay. So let's take a look and see Chester County. Let's see if we got any special stuff with Chester County we might be able to pull up that's not your typical easy to pull up sort of thing. So all these different places. What might be able to tell us where in Ireland they came from? Because that's that's one of the things that a lot of American families are hoping for, is to figure out, where they came from. So, I wonder if he knows what his family's ancestry is in terms of like religion. See if there's a specific church we can connect them to. Court records, Chester County. Oh, actually, interesting. I wonder if we can find something that relates to what we were looking at before. No, why not? Okay. So, immigration, which is really what I was hoping to have as a thing. Let's actually, all right, one thing we should do, let's estimate when they came over. See if we can figure that out. I don't think they say it in the 1860 census. So there's their older daughter, Mary. Then a May Pearl, looks like. Mary Pearl. Who I wonder if she's related. So that's where if I had DNA, I'd be looking up and seeing, do I have people with the Pearl surname coming up as matches? All right. Chester, PA. Probably looking. Okay, actually, I mean, we know it's pre-1860. I'm trying to remember if they say it 1880s, but they should say it at least. In the 1900 census. Well, I thought I accepted the 1900 census for her. Oh, does she die 1891? Oh, but that's weird. It wouldn't make sense that she'd use her maiden name, Welsh. Which I was wondering, where did the family get that Welsh name from? Because that's, I gotta admit, that came straight off of a tree. Yeah, see, someone has the death date, which it could be because, well, Yeadon, Delaware, Pennsylvania. Nothing that it would indicate where the person died. So I'm not going to get into that too much. Oh, yeah, I guess we could. Oh, she does. October 12th, 1891. It is. She does say October 12th, 1891, but this is not her. 23rd of June, 1891. That's it's a weird time to get buried. Months before your death. Sounds horrific. So we're going to ignore that. Just get it out of here. So if she dies 1891, we're not going to get that info. Mary's born 1858. Where was she born? Pennsylvania. So born Pennsylvania. We know that the family was there by 1858. So yeah, all we know is before 1858. Where am I clicking to? Oh yeah, this is what I was looking for. So it's possible they could show up here, but I doubt it. Because that means that both Martin and Margaret would have shown up as children. Just possible, but all right, let me close that. And maybe this. No Dillons. So nothing in the indentured servant complaints. Okay. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, with a name like Edward Dillon, it just leaves so much up for what could be found. Or excuse me, not Edward Dillon, Martin Dillon. That's who we're looking for as the ancestor. So Shane Gillis descends from this great grandmother of his, Anna Dillon. So let's go ahead. I like this photo. Huh. So, all right. So we know 1891, 12 October 1891. It's on the stone. Martin, we've got that. That is 1874. We knew that wasn't him. That's something we already confirmed. We found him in there. And possibly him. So we've reviewed all that. Let's just do a search. Let's see what we can find for. You know what? Actually, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a new search. And I'm just going to search for Dillon, Chester County, PA, Zach 2. And let's do. I want to see if there were other Dillons that came over. You know, is this the only Dillon family, or was there possibly others? Got this Eliza Dillon, who was born 1815, Pensbury. Margaret Dillon, 1860. Conferred spouse Charles Dillon. The children. And then a mother, Mary Dillon, here. John Dillon. Now for this family, is it Ireland? Because we got birthplace Pennsylvania. All PA, so might not be the same family. So that's one other thing now to consider, is that as we're looking at other Dillons in Chester County, it seems that there may be other Dillons that are from a completely different other family. Because presumably if they were, born about 1820s, it would likely be Ireland if this was the family we're looking for. So Michael. But of course, the other thing to consider too is that Dillon's not exactly an uncommon name. Habits. So we got Civil War registration. Civil War registrations. And that's a 1820 take. So let's do. Yeah, see, it's already pretty low. Yeah. This is where I wish I had DNA, because this is like, this is where the DNA stuff would help so much. And in fact, I know he's done 23andMe because he did he talked about it on one of his podcasts. So yeah, from here, this is where we would be getting into what's known as the research phase. So what I mean by that is that I think of the process in genealogy as three main phases. Phase one is the hint phase. All right, we'll just go back to the tree. So the hint phase is where you're just going through the hints, kind of like we've been doing. Then once you've exhausted the hints, then you can do searching. So that's kind of what we've been doing, where it's like, okay, let's do different searches on different record sets where maybe we can find something with that, or look into places like this to see, what might be around that we haven't considered as something to look into. And then the researching phase is where you get even deeper into that kind of stuff. So, or into that kind of stuff being the research stuff. So or the searching stuff. So in a sense, like doing this part, looking into the wiki and looking at some stuff that really is a little out of the ordinary, that's kind of getting into the research phase. But like the next big thing I'd want to do is like the USCIS, see what we can find on immigration records. Well, I guess actually no, not for this, because this is way too early. But just looking into what other things may be available. So like another thing is, let's see, does Chester County have a historical society or a genealogical society? Because a lot of times you might be able to find stuff in their collections that you don't even realize are around. So, we've got, I won't let me move it over. Got this history museum I just found. Chester County Genealogical. How is this the right Chester County, though? Because there are multiple. Yeah, Chester County, PA. And then let's see, collections. Oh, their website. Their website needs a little fixing. They kind of have the menu behind, unless it loaded weird for me. No, it's just. Let's just go to their collections. All right. What do they have? I'm gonna have to look at it like this. Seriously? Oh, so stupid. Oh, come on. Come on. Lame. All right. Let's see. Manuscripts, genealogy. But then let's see. Here's our Chester County Archives Record Services, archival online records, guides, and indexes. Oh, no Dillon. All right. Yeah, so this is kind of where it's like, jumping to different areas to see what we can find. Let's see, tax indexes, 19th century. Okay, so now this is where we could possibly see when did the family arrive. We have a big gap in these tax records. Martin's born in 1813. So with these tax records, 1838, and then a jump to 1875. So basically we'll get to see, will we find them in 1838? Now, I don't know how these records are, but for some communities, let's see if there's a Martin Dillon spelled differently. Doesn't look like it. No. But in some communities, you can basically say, okay, if they were a part of this community, they have to be in the tax records. If they are not in the tax records, then you're not going to be able to confirm that they were there at that time. Was I looking at the wrong? No, I was looking at the right. Dilworth. Dill. Okay. But if they are there, then obviously, okay, they must have been there. So let's see if they're in here now. Dillinger. And here we go. Dillon Margaret. So, you know, we knew 1875. That's a year after Martin dies. Here we've got Margaret being listed in New Garden. So New Garden seems to be pretty consistent. So now the other thing we can do is if we find anything, if we can go even more specific than just Chester County and look in New Garden specifically, which when you get in a really specific town, sometimes the places to look will be the local libraries, because the local libraries will have like their little historical repository thing of so much stuff that, like, unless they have an archivist or somebody kind of heading the, you know, record keeping in those, a lot of times I've gone into some of those libraries with those little historical nooks and whatnot, and they don't even know what's in there. So let's see what else, because we couldn't find his death record, death records, proof of death records. Let's see if we can find it in here. Okay, so register of deaths. So this is what I mean by researching. We are doing way, way more than you know, your typical just, you know, going through Ancestry. And so, you know, with all three of those, the hint search or the hint phase, the searching phase, and the researching phase, there's different ways to do them because different websites do hints differently, do, you know, they're searching differently. And then, of course, with the research phase, that's the one that goes all over the place. And if you watch my YouTuber Family Tree series, it's usually the research phase that leads me to finding the people that I interview in those. So, like a great example, the most recent one for Max Miller, finding his family connection to Carleton College. And then I got in touch with the archivist at Carleton College. In that same vein, I tried to get in touch with I did get in touch with the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Historical Society. And they basically told me, you know, we don't keep enough information about this to know anything specific about a person. But you know, here's some places that might be helpful. Okay. Now, how do they have this? Let me zoom in more. I can barely read it. I doubt any of you can. Okay, so we're in the D's now. Date of record. Okay, we're going by date, so we're gonna need to scroll down a ways. I just stopped putting the dates in. What? Why'd they just stop putting in the dates? They're like, we don't need them. Well, that makes things difficult. Wow. Oh, I guess we do have it kind of over here. Oh, we have it over here. That's why. Okay, so we're looking for 1907. We're looking for Edward's death. Wait, not 1907, 1902. Why am I thinking 1907? Okay, 1902. And it's either something between March 31st and April 2nd. 1902, 1902. It's really done all wacky. Okay, so that's December. What is going on with these records? Date of record. Okay, date of death. That's what we need to focus on then. We knew he kept livestock, so that's something else to. Huh. Man, these records. Either I'm just not catching on to what they're actually doing with these records, or they're just being funky with it. Cause of death. That's really what we want to kind of find. Just going to start looking at the names. It's kind of what I've been going back to look at the names. But this is one of the other things that's the fun part of the research phase, is it's a lot of basically just clicking through pages. It's not too dissimilar to going to the library and flipping through a bunch of pages. Because when you're in the research phase, you're basically focusing on a lot of stuff that just isn't readily available to find or is easily findable. All right. Oh, shit. I have no idea if that's the actual Shane Gillis, but if that is, that's cool. All right. I have not seen Dillon anywhere. I think we're way past 1902. Way past 1902. So, all right. I don't think we're ever going to find a death record. I don't think we're ever going to do it. Maybe. But obviously not in the Chester County stuff. Unless maybe it's in like a different death register area. Dillon. Definitely not. I don't know if anyone saw it and I missed it. Okay. Let's go down to like 100. No. There you go. Let's go 200. Maybe it will actually be in here. Nope. Nope. Such a wacky record keeping system here. All right. I don't think we're going to be able to find it. It's going to take a lot more. It's going to take a lot more. I think what we'll need to focus on is the fact that it's in New Garden specifically. New Garden Township Archives. I think that's just the government archives. Not a genealogy archive. New Garden Township, PA. Genealogy. Yeah, nothing. It's a shame they don't have any tax records getting into the 1850s and stuff. Yeah, it was in here, wasn't it? Well, how long am I going? Over an hour and a half. So haven't quite been able to figure out quite what we want. So the main, I guess the main two things we've been trying to figure out. One, finding a death record for Edward, which obviously we know how he died. We have a ton of newspapers telling us all about it. But nothing to help us out with that. Two. And then the other thing is where in Ireland did the family come from? Where did Martin and Margaret come from? So, all right, let's read this one. I don't think we read this one. This one's kind of interesting. So April 3rd. So this is a day after the other one that I read, which was the April 2nd one. And the April 2nd one kind of was talking about how they needed to find the guy, Gardner or whatever. Yeah, Dr. Gardner. So the brutal affray by which Edward Dillon of New Garden lost his life was investigated yesterday by Coroner Troutman, who went to the scene of the tragedy. The case was proven to be so serious that a warrant was sworn out for Dr. Gardner, the gypsy horse doctor who has testified to inflicted the fatal blows, and Constable Timonus was armed with the paper to make a search for the man who had disappeared after the assault. The circumstances of the case are about as related yesterday. Edward Dillon, the dead man, had been in Philadelphia during Monday and returned by way of Avondale and then went home to near New Garden Meeting House, accompanied by a man named Webster. A gypsy camp nearby was visited by the two men to settle a dispute over some empty bottles, which Gardner, the gypsy, had asked for and been refused by Dillon. Webster took up the fight and was struck over the head 2 blows, it is said, with an axe in Dillon's hand and fell to the ground. Dillon then dared any other men to come out of the tent and stood in front of it ready to defend himself with the axe, which in all honesty, I mean, that's kind of, that's one hell of a scene. Where the hell was I? I totally lost it. All right. The men inside the tent came out on the back and entered into controversy with Dillon, and the argument was kept up until the men had passed into the New Garden Friends Cemetery, adjoining the woods where the gypsy encampment was, and here it is alleged Gardner struck Dillon a terrible blow on the back of the head with a club and knocked him down, and afterwards repeated the cruel blows several times so heavily that they were heard at some distance by persons passing along the public road. Gardner then carried the club and axe back to his tent. The assaulted man finally managed to get to his home and went to bed, and a physician called. The injuries were looked upon by Dr. Gifford, the physician, as being so serious that he attempted to get Dillon to make an ante-mortem statement, but he refused to do so and subsequently died. Squire Lip of Avondale was notified, and a jury was impaneled. I was about to say impaled. And doctors Gifford and Bullock made an examination of the dead man's brain, which was found to be congested and almost beaten to a jelly. A verdict to the effect that Dillon came to his death from wounds inflicted by Dr. Gardner was rendered by the jury, and a warrant sworn out for his arrest is stated. The accused man, in the meantime, had left New Garden, but is said to be seen in Coatesville later on his way to Scranton. Dillon, who leaves a wife and several children, will be buried today. So an interesting thing mentioned, passed into the New Garden Friends Cemetery. I want to see if we can find where that is, because then we know exactly the spot that this happened. So Okay. I just realized I should do it over here. Let's check back. It's going so slow. So new garden, friends. What is? Man, it is glitching out today. Okay, there we go. I'm trying to get this over. It is not liking it. Yeah, New Garden Friends Cemetery. Maybe it was a Quaker cemetery. That's a good point. Although, I guess, I don't know. Were there a lot of Irish Quakers? Even more Irish Quakers coming over in the 1800s. I don't know. Okay, so it happened somewhere here. Obviously, they had their tent set up somewhere around here. They're and that's where he got into a fight. Blows were struck. So this is where it happened, somewhere around here. So yeah, New Garden Meeting House. So I don't know where New Garden Meeting House is, but yeah. All right. Yeah. That's probably what it is. Although now that I'm thinking about it, it may not be his family's, connection. It's just that that's the spot where this camp was, and that's where this incident happened. So, and yeah, such an interesting story. My wife is descended from Quakers that went from Nantucket to New Garden, Guilford County, North Carolina. Wonder if there's a link. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, maybe New Garden was like a common name for Quaker towns or something. I don't know. Yo no say way. Yo no say. So, all right. I think I'm gonna call it there. It's been a fun stream today. Got to look into this story about Shane Gillis's second great grandfather Edward Dillon through his great grandmother Anna Lafferty Dillon, or Anna Lafferty Nee Dillon, I guess would be a better way to say it. Still want to figure out possibly where the parents came from in Ireland, but I'm not quite sure how possible that is. I'd have to find out from anyone who possibly has experience with Irish ancestry in Western Pennsylvania, in Eastern Pennsylvania. And, if there's a way to find that, because, the typical ways are naturalizations and drafts and things where they have to say where they were born. But thank you, everybody, for joining the stream today. Had a lot of fun. Next week, I think I will be back on the reaction channel doing answering questions and all of that. And then we'll be doing some other stuff with just, the building your family trees and doing more celebrity family trees and all of that. One other thing I do want to mention, If you haven't gone to it yet, the new GeneaVlogger Clips channel is now up and live with 3 videos. So I'm going to be there's going to be a video coming out every day, a clip every day, coming out of the live stream. So technically you can already go and see most of this stuff that's going to be up there. But just a fun way to, be able to see a lot more of my live streams without having to watch the full, hour and a half, 2 hour long thing afterwards, which I don't know. Personally, I enjoy live streams much more during the stream than afterwards because the interaction and all that. But thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Have a wonderful weekend. And that's going to be it. I'm Jared Ross, GeneaVlogger. I'm out.